Somewhere right now, a person is saying something into a room that refuses to answer them, not because no one heard, because someone decided not to. And here's the part that should unsettle you. Silence isn't the absence of communication. It's one of the most efficient weapons a human being has ever developed. No fists, no words, just nothing. And nothing, delivered on purpose, can dismantle a person faster than an insult ever could. We're taught that words wound, but the body doesn't process being ignored like an insult. It processes it like an injury. And that's not a metaphor. That's neuroscience. In the early 2000s, a researcher named Naomi Eisenberger ran an experiment called Cyberball. Picture a simple video game, 3 players tossing a ball back and forth, except 2 of the players are computer-controlled, and at some point they simply stop throwing the ball to the third, the real human sitting in the scanner. That's it. That's the whole cruelty, a ball not being thrown. And the brain scans came back the way you'd expect if someone had physically struck the participant. The anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that fires when you stub your toe or burn your hand, lit up. Being excluded from a ball-tossing game with strangers who don't exist activated the same alarm system as physical pain. That's not an accident of biology. It's the design. For most of human history, being cast out of the group didn't mean hurt feelings. It meant no protection, no food sharing, no odds of surviving the night. The brain evolved to treat social exclusion as a 5-alarm fire because, for 200,000 years, it basically was 1. So when someone leaves you on red, when they walk past you without a glance, when a room goes quiet the second you sit down, your nervous system isn't being dramatic. It's running an ancient subroutine that once meant you were about to die alone in the cold, which raises an uncomfortable question. If ignoring someone causes that much internal damage, why do we do it to each other constantly and often on purpose? Turns out, there isn't one answer. There are 3, and they are not equal. The first kind of silence is a weapon disguised as composure. Psychologists call this ostracism as punishment, using withdrawal not to protect yourself, but to control the other person's behavior. It says, "You don't get access to me until you perform the correction I want." No accusation to defend against, no argument to win, just an absence that makes the other person do all the emotional labor of guessing, apologizing, and chasing. It works because uncertainty is more distressing than confrontation. A fight has rules. Silence has none. And a mind with no information will always fill the gap with its own worst-case scenario, usually blaming itself first. This is the version of ignoring that isn't really about needing space. It's about leverage. The second kind looks identical from the outside, but comes from a completely different place. This is the friend who goes quiet not to punish you, but because their nervous system has hit capacity. Social interaction for a lot of people isn't free. It's metabolically expensive. Every conversation, every text that needs a thoughtful reply, every obligation to perform fine when you're not, draws down a finite resource. When that resource hits 0, withdrawal isn't strategy. It's a shutdown response, the same category of behavior as an animal going still when overstimulated. The tragedy is that it looks exactly like the first kind of ignoring from the outside, which means the person receiving it often assumes malice where there's actually just exhaustion. The failure here isn't the silence. It's that both versions are unlabeled. The third kind is the rarest, and it's the one people misread the most. This isn't punishment. It isn't overload. It's a person who has actually, structurally, stopped caring about the outcome. And here's what's strange about human psychology. Nothing is more magnetic than someone who doesn't need your reaction. We are wired to chase what withdraws and undervalue what stays. Genuine detachment reads as confidence because it can't be faked convincingly for long. Manipulative silence always has a flicker of monitoring behind it, a check to see if it's working. Real indifference has no check-in. It's not performing distance. It simply isn't invested in the first place. This is the version that earns respect because it's the only one with nothing to gain from your reaction. Here's where it gets self-destructive. The moment someone starts ignoring you, your brain doesn't file it as unavailable. It files it as unsolved. And unsolved problems are the most addictive kind of problem the mind can generate. This is the same mechanism behind a slot machine. Not the reward itself, but the uncertainty of the reward is what hijacks attention. So you text again. You like an old photo. You mention their name to a mutual friend, hoping it gets back. Every one of these actions does the opposite of what you intend. It doesn't restore balance, it confirms to the other person that the silence is working. Their value, in your mind, keeps climbing precisely because they stopped supplying anything. Psychologists sometimes call this the scarcity heuristic. We assign worth based on availability, not substance. A person says nothing, and somehow that nothing gets interpreted as depth. The way out isn't a clever comeback or a perfectly timed message that proves you don't care. It's actually not caring, or at minimum, redirecting the attention you were about to spend, chasing someone back into something that grows you instead of depletes you. Self-respect, in this context, isn't an emotion. It's a rule you enforce, even when you don't feel calm enough to enforce it. I will not bid for access to someone who has made their distance clear. Every time you break that rule, the chase confirms the price. Every time you hold it, the price stops being set by someone else. So here's the twist this video has been building toward. Ignoring someone isn't one behavior. It's two completely different acts that happen to look identical from the outside. One is a bid for power, an attempt to make someone else's stability dependent on your approval. The other is a boundary, a refusal to keep funding a dynamic that costs more than it gives back. The line between them isn't the silence itself. It's the intent behind it. Whether the quiet is designed to control someone else's next move, or designed to finally stop reacting to theirs. But there's one more layer to this, and it's the part almost nobody talks about. The way a person uses silence tends to reveal more about them than the person they're ignoring. Someone who weaponizes it is usually terrified of direct conflict. Silence lets them punish without ever having to justify the punishment out loud. And someone who mistakes exhaustion for cruelty toward them is usually carrying a habit of taking other people's behavior personally, even when it was never about them at all. In both cases, the silence is a mirror. It shows you exactly where a person's fear lives. And maybe that's the real reason this dynamic is so hard to walk away from. It's not just that we want the attention back, it's that we want the explanation. We want to know which version of silence we just experienced, the punishment or the boundary, because not knowing feels like an open wound that never closes on its own. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes you never get that explanation. And the healthiest thing you can do isn't to solve the mystery. It's to stop needing the answer in order to move forward. The moment you can sit in that uncertainty without chasing it, without spiraling, without needing someone else's silence to make sense, that's not detachment. That's the actual finish line. That's what people mean when they say someone finally got their power back. Ask yourself, next time you're on either side of that silence, is this protecting my peace? Or is this trying to punish someone into giving me what I want? That question is the whole psychology of ignoring people compressed into one sentence. If this gave you a new way to look at the silence in your own life, the kind you've received or the kind you've given, subscribe to Mind Canvas Studio and drop a comment. Which kind of silence have you experienced more? The one used to control or the one used to protect? Because chances are, if you're watching this, you already know the answer. You just haven't said it out loud yet.